Tonight, we slip into a moment outside the calendar, gliding with abandoned miracle machines, boring history perfect for dozing. Before you sink deeper into the pillow, give a gentle tap on like, and if soothed, let subscribe follow. Drop a quiet clue, share what your city is famed for no name, and the minute you pressed play, I'll try to guess where you are as we map the night together. Now ease the lights low, let the hum of a fan or a gentle breeze keep you company. We'll begin when you're ready. A chilled breeze curls along the stone floor, smelling of wet rope and old ship tar. Rusted hinges sigh as you nudge a battered wooden door open. Sour damp and cold metal drift out, slipping across your cheeks like pond mist at dawn. A heavy gate rattles overhead. Its chains groan, then fall still, leaving you a hallway of silent stone. Torchlight pools at your feet. You walk forward, shoes crunching grit older than any map you studied in school. The hall opens into a tall room, walls covered with tarnished bronze nameplates no one reads anymore. Shadows stir near the beams above, as though the inventions below still breathe. The first relic waits on a cracked stone base. A barnacled machine leans under its own strange shape. Bronze wheels, interlocked teeth, tiny carved numbers half lost to green rust. You run a thumb over a sea-worn spoke and feel the cold of time push back. A drop of seawater clings mid-fall, as if time froze when divers pulled it from the Aegean Sea. Against the wall, a faded sign claims this device once tracked eclipses, wandering planets, even sports games. Today's copies can do half of that. Ever updates and troubleshooting, but this thing ticked along while Rome burned, Byzantium sparkled, and maps changed, until the ocean swallowed it whole. You tilt the torch, and the base's shadow becomes a sundial over cracked stone. Through a gap, you glimpse pin-sized bearings on slim rods, all made without machines, power, or clean labs. You think of the smartwatch buzzing on your wrist. It counts steps, but can it find Jupiter tonight? That's humbling. Distant drip echoes, 5 seconds apart like a pulse reminding you to breathe. In your mind, the Mediterranean rolls, boats rocking, sailors unaware their cargo will vanish for 2,000 years, then reappear tonight. Overhead, the gate drops a fleck of rust, still following commands from a twist long ago. Picture that maker hunched at a lamplit bench, filing teeth no bigger than seeds, trusting math older than ink. Bronze dust dances as it falls, vanishing into dark seawater below. He never knew your name, but now you know his focus. A curved marking rings the edge, half letters, half barnacle. You spot a fading delta and a broken loop, but the message holds. The sky was studied, remembered, rebuilt. You lean closer, letting your eyes adjust, and see tiny marks on one gear's edge, each one a single day. Another disc shows a spiral of moon signs, 12 petals turning inside 13. Experts say it followed a 19-year cycle that matched the sun and moon. You don't need the math. You just feel its rhythm slip beneath your breath, soft and even. The ceiling curves like a stone sky overhead. Water beads on carved arcs, pooling into shallow bowls cut to catch each drop. They fall like little stars tracing slow paths to the floor. You realize this room is a clock. The place itself tells time, while its treasures sleep. That thought slows your thoughts too, wrapping restless corners in quiet. You straighten up, feeling the stillness press against your back. For a moment, you worry a word might crack the silence, so you tilt the torch in farewell, and the bronze machine glints, accepting your hush as a round of applause. Dust spins around your shoes, stirred by a breeze that smells faintly of steam. You step onward, letting the hallway open like a scroll, ready to write new secrets into the night. but a low wheeze rises from the dark. Maybe an old door breathing again after years of quiet. You pause a little longer, letting your eyes sweep across broken pieces scattered like drop stars. Bent pointers shaped like fishtails lie beside dials scratched with sun symbols. A brass bead once pressed behind glass now shakes near the base, almost falling. This quiet mess reminds you, progress doesn't move in straight lines. It loops, forgets, and learns again, just like these gears. Elsewhere in this vault, water will sing through copper, silk will shine from clams, and glass will glow deep red. You draw a slower breath, shoulders softening, and let the story move close. Surviving tonight is simple. Follow your wonder, keep the torch steady, and let the dark carry the hours. Air thickens with wet clay as you round the next arch. Under wavering torchlight, a shelf emerges. 20 squat jars, each sealed by an asphalt plug the color of dried blood. A copper rod juts through every lid, its tip dulled by centuries of touch. You ease one jar free, and gritty dust snowflakes against your sleeve, drifting like slow meteors before settling. The jar feels oddly alive. When your palm slides over the rough pottery, a tingle snaps across your skin, quick and polite, like a kitten's static shock. You blink, then steady your breath, remembering how the bronze computer's gears once tracked eclipses. Here, charge hides in vinegar-tart darkness, still willing to leap after 2,000 silent years. Scientists debate if it plated jewelry or hummed in temple rituals. Yet each theory stops short of certainty, much like the spark which now fades across your fingertips. You set the first vessel down and lift its neighbor. Faint etchings ring the rim, palm leaves, a looping fish, and a symbol that might be lightning or a river fork. It depends on how the firelight hits. The jar's weight hints at something sloshing deep inside, but when you tilt it, nothing moves. Whatever liquid once brewed there has long whispered away. Even so, the woven straw pad beneath each base remains, fragile yet steady, as if the caretaker expected your visit. A low hum throbs through the shelf, imagined perhaps, yet your ear insists. In school, you memorized voltage formulas. Copper minus iron, acid fills the gap. Those lessons felt abstract then. Now, history crackles on the skin of your hand, showing its work without chalk or slide. You picture a craftsman pouring grape vinegar into the clay, lowering an iron rod next to copper, sealing the lid with warm pitch. He tests the charge by touching both metals with a thin silver bead, watching it blush gold in seconds. Modern labs have rebuilt the experiment under fluorescent light, but their readings stay inconsistent, like a radio tuned to an almost gone station. Some replicas overperform, others sit dumb. The difference, researchers whisper, might lurk in trace metals they overlook, tiny flecks of tin or zinc that the ancients added by taste, not calculus. You roll the idea around, a workshop where alloys were seasoned like soup, each new batch flavored by instinct. The row of jars fans outward, forming a crescent that frames a wall mosaic. Broken tesserae show a stylized eagle clutching bolts, half mosaic, half warning. Beside it, a reed basket holds copper nails coiled by green patina. You pull one loose, noticing how the spiral threads still grip as if forged yesterday. A thought nudges you. If you joined nail to rod, rod to iron, jar to jar, you could stack every humble cell into a buzzing river of charge. Enough maybe to light the vaulted ceiling in soft amber, or to jolt a sacred idol into trembling life. Yet you resist the urge. Night invites wonder, not vandalism. Instead, you press a fingertip against two exposed contacts. A mild sting flickers, then a warmth trails up your wrist, tiny and harmless. It feels like a memory wearing electricity as perfume. You inhale burnt pitch, vinegar ghost, and distant dust, letting the scents braid into a calm tether. Remember the computer's gears? They mapped the cosmos with math alone. These jars choose chemistry, drawing power from fruit acid and faith in invisible forces. Both speak the same language: patience, precision, audacity. You realize the museum isn't just a room. It's a dialogue between clever hands across centuries, daring you to listen longer than any lecture hall allows. A drip falls somewhere behind you, echoing like the tick of a metronome. When you glance back, the corridor you crossed feels softer, as if shadow stitched a quilt over each stone. Ahead, faint air currents carry the scent of warm steam, metal mixed with myrtle, perhaps a prelude to hinges moved by hidden bellows. You slide the jar back onto its straw nest, cheeks still tingling from the subtle charge. Before moving on, you give one last look at the Baghdad battery lineup. Clay, copper, iron, vinegar. Simple parts held together by curiosity. Your torchlight flares along the copper rods, and for an instant they appear like a row of candle wicks, waiting to catch an unseen flame. You let the image linger, filling your lungs with quiet awe. Then, as if invited by that thought, a gust nudges the door frame beyond the shelf. Its wooden panels shiver, and somewhere deeper, metal sighs. Perhaps an ancient set of automatic doors aligning their forgotten gears for your arrival. You step toward the whispering promise, torch raised, ready to see what breathes behind those steam-warmed lungs. Warm mist greets you the moment you leave the hall, curling against your cheeks like cautious fingers. The air smells of bronze, warmed by hidden coals, and of sweet myrtle crushed under sandal soles. Ahead, twin temple doors tower 3 times your height, each slab hammered from copper sheets now green with age. They stand shut, yet tremble at their hinges, as if holding in a breath too long delayed. The marble floor slopes gently upward toward those doors. Along the rise, shallow channels snake underfoot, etched to carry water toward unseen boilers. You kneel, tracing a finger along one groove. The stone feels faintly warm, pulsing in steady waves. Somewhere beyond the wall, liquid grumbles, then hushes. A soft hiss follows, and tiny clouds slip through hairline seams around the door frames before vanishing. On either flank, bronze lions crouch atop granite plinths. Each lion clamps an iron pipe in its jaws, and from one pipe a whisper of steam exhales, disappearing into torchlit air. You note riveted joints, leather gaskets, pegs of cedar hammered tight. No electric wires, no digital sensors, just pressure, gravity, and craftsmanship, sure enough to wait centuries for your arrival. Near your knee sits a foot pedal the size of a book cover, its surface stamped with a lotus. You press down, cautiously. The pedal yields with a soft click, and deep inside the floor a valve sighs. Instantly, both lions belch thicker vapor. Hidden bellows thump twice, and iron chains rattle behind stone cladding. You feel the floor vibrate beneath your boots, like a cat purring after too long alone. A second later, the massive doors groan, edges rising half a finger's width from the lintel. They do not swing outward or inward. Instead, they glide sideways along bronze rollers grooved into the sill. Their motion is slow, ceremonial, and strangely smooth. No shrill squeal, no scrap of rust. Ancient automatic doors, because priests hated pushing and pulling like everyone else. As the gap widens, you glimpse rods of polished cedar sliding within copper sleeves. Each rod's motion seems driven by leather straps that loop around drum wheels hidden under the threshold. Steam pressure forces the drums to spin. Returning channels vent spent vapor into limestone ducts, cooling it into drips that haunt the halls as steady ticks. You admire the closed circuit. Fire heats water, water becomes breath. Breath nudges wood and metal in a dance choreographed long before thermostats ruled. 20 heartbeats pass before the opening is wide enough for you to step through. Yet you linger, mesmerized by the self-moving system. Small bronze idols above the lintel tip forward each time the doors glide, sprinkling cinnamon-scented dust that once marked the start of festival nights. The scent floats toward you now, spicy, comforting, and blends with steam to form a gentle herbal hush. You recall the tingle from the battery jars and realize both inventions chase the same dream, motion from the unseen. One uses chemistry, the other harnesses pressure. Both whisper that nature can be persuaded with patience, not brute force. You tuck that thought into memory, the way sailors store a lucky coin. The doorway finally settles at full span. A mild tremble fades, chains grow still, and the lion's steam dwindles to a thread before stopping. Somewhere, a counterweight resets with a muted thunk, ready to close when you have passed. You step forward, palm brushing the warm edge of the automatic doors, noting how copper smooths under centuries of mineral-rich air. The metal feels almost alive, skin warmed by hidden veins. Beyond the threshold, another chamber awaits, shimmering with faint orange light that flickers across molten shapes. You catch a distant sizzle, metal meeting mold, and smell rice chaff smoke curling upward. Something swirls in a crucible, promising new forms frozen mid-dance. Your pulse answers, steady and curious. Whatever spins next may hold the grace of movement forever still. Heat blooms around you, brushing your face like oven breath as you leave the steam-hinged doors behind. The corridor narrows, then blossoms into a glowing hall where crucibles sit on stone hearths, each one pulsing orange. Sparks leap, drift, and fade. Tiny comets that land on your sleeves before winking out. The air tastes of singed rice and copper, sweet and sharp together, a scent that lingers on the tip of your tongue. A raised platform commands the room. Upon it stands a clay figure, waist-high, wrapped in layers of ash-gray slurry. Thin channels stripe the shell-like vines on bark. At its feet rests a basket of powdered husk, still warm from the kiln. You recognize the scene even before your mind names it. The silent instant before bronze becomes flesh. Artisans once began with beeswax, shaping every curl of hair, each ripple of fabric, every subtle smile. They coated that wax in fine clay, let the husk dry, then smeared another layer, patient as moon phases. When the shell thickened, they fired it, melting the wax out through narrow vents. What remained was a hollow ghost, waiting to be filled with fire-born metal. Tonight you stand where those ghosts still wait. Near the platform, a crucible tilts on a brick cradle. Liquid bronze, bright as sunrise, pours in a shimmering rope. It slides through a spout, vanishes into the clay shell, and strikes the hollow interior with a hiss like rain on a hot roof. The shell vibrates, then stills. Molten metal settles where wax once dreamed, freezing a dancer mid-whirl before the mind can blink. Rice husk ash mixed with sand gave this mold unusual strength. It trapped heat just long enough for every fingertip and anklet to cast clean. Imagine Chola foundries under southern stars, bronze glowing beside riverbanks, temple bells timing each pour. Village children might have watched sparks spin skyward, guessing which new deity would grace the sanctum next. Your torch beam skims the shell, catching faint rings that mark the artisan's steady hand. Even the vents feel intentional, small channels branching like tree roots, guiding air out so bronze could flood in without trapping a single bubble. Modern engineers use vacuum pumps for that trick. The Chola smith needed only gravity, wind, and calm conviction. As the shell cools, thin wisps of smoke drift from tiny cracks, curling into letters no script records. You place your palm near the surface. Radiant heat hugs your skin, yet never burns. Patience tells you to wait. Slowly, faint lines darken, revealing the curve of a hip, the flare of a skirt, a lifted arm poised in eternal motion. The Chola lost wax bronze dancer is almost ready to greet the world again. You step back, letting the glow bathe your face. Somewhere behind, the battery's tingling memory and the automatic door's hiss merge into a distant hum, as though the vault itself applauds every clever chapter. Here, movement freezes in metal, yet still feels alive. Hips twisting, anklets clinking, toes barely touching earth. Light skates across polished surfaces, persuading your eyes that bronze might bend at any moment. A cool draft sneaks through floor vents, kissing the shell and hardening its sheen. Fine cracks begin to spider, and with a soft tap, the clay jacket slides away in flakes, revealing skin-smooth bronze. Fresh metal reflects torchlight in warm pools, while darker shadows cling to every recess. You trace the outline with sight alone, noting subtle details, delicate fingers, a slight tilt of chin, the swirl of a ribbon frozen mid-spin. In Chola temples, such dancers once circled shrines, carried on shoulders during moonlit festivals. Devotees believed bronze bodies could breathe divine presence. Tonight, the belief feels plausible. You half expect the statue to wink, sharing a private joke about time's slow waltz. Instead, silence holds, soothing as the hush before dawn. Tools rest nearby, chisels, agate burnishers, strips of red sandalwood for polishing. They wait like loyal attendants, ready to erase mold seams and coax the final glow. You lift the smallest chisel, feeling its balanced weight. The handle bears shallow grooves, worn smooth by fingers long turned to dust. Craft, it seems, remembers its masters. You replace the tool, unwilling to mar perfection. Bronze cools, the glow dims, and a calm hush spreads like ink in water. Somewhere deeper in the vault, stone pipes channel wind, and a faint whoosh hints at secret fountains above jungle treetops. You exhale, letting heat drain from your cheeks, and offer the dancer a silent bow. Gratitude for grace poured from fire. A quieter corridor stretches ahead, lit only by inset floor lamps that glow like buried embers. Their low light guides you along walls where tiny shards of colored glass shine, remnants swept from forgotten workshops. You glide over the tiles, noticing how each step echoes, softer than the last, as if the stone itself wants to hush your thoughts before the next marvel. Halfway down, an alcove opens, framed by marble carved into grape-leaf scrolls. Inside rests a single glass cup, no larger than your palm, standing on a plinth of black basalt. At first glance, it appears dull olive, the color of still pond water. You lean closer, letting torchlight climb its curves, and the cup shifts green, fading, red blooming like sunset poured into crystal. The blink, move the flame away, and the red retreats into green again. An ancient trick, performed without wires or paint. You lift the torch higher, and tiny gold-silver specks trapped inside the glass catch the beam, scattering it as 1,000 invisible mirrors. Roman artisans mixed those flecks by accident, some scholars claim, while chasing the perfect emerald tint. Others swear the effect was deliberate, a coded luxury reserved for emperors. Either way, the glow feels intentional, like a private laugh whispered across 2 millennia. Your fingers hover above the plinth, but never touch. Previous relics taught respect. Still, you imagine how cold the rim would feel, how strange to sip watered wine from a vessel that blushes with every toast. Travelers once swore the cup foretold poison. Green safe, red danger, though the science hides in plain sight. Light scattering through metal dust finer than flour. Modern labs replicate it only with lasers and vacuum chambers. Rome did it with sand, furnace, and nerve. A plaque nearby bears a single line etched in Latin and later scratched in English. Mirum videre lumen rubrum sub nocte. Wonder to see red light beneath night. Someone added an arrow pointing to a chipped corner where a shard was once removed for study. The missing piece aches like lost memory, yet the effect survives. a small mercy in a hall that has seen too many chisels. Centuries ago, banqueters would pass the cup from hand to hand, watching torches turn their watered wine the color of fresh pomegranate. Serving slaves dimmed lamps on cue, amplifying the shift until gasps rose round the table. Scholars later called the effect dichroism, but the word feels clumsy next to live wonder. The emperor, stories say, used the trick as icebreaker. Wagering foreign envoys had never met glass that acted like a chameleon. You picture the workshop, kiln roaring on the Tiber's bank, a master glassmaker coaxing copper tongs towards a crucible glowing white. Hot, into the molten sand he sprinkles powdered gold, ground so fine it drifts like pollen before vanishing beneath the surface. One slip and the mix clouds to swamp brown. Perfect proportion, and the melt clears to the secret green now before you. You cannot get bored now. Before you, no written recipe survives, only shards unearthed from middens, evidence that trial and error sometimes births quiet genius. When you flick the torch just so, the red glow ripples across the cup's inner walls, casting a rosy halo onto the basalt plinth. For an instant, the stone itself seems to breathe, catching and releasing color like lungs trading dawn for dusk. You hold that fragile magic until your arm tires. Modern researchers aimed lasers through thin slices of the glass, mapping how blue light scatters while red slips straight through. Their charts look tidy, yet they still gasp when viewing the full cup under a single candle. Data proves the trick. Experience makes it sing. You file that contrast away, lesson for any night when spreadsheet. The glow lingers behind your eyelids even after you blink, a portable ember you can carry deeper into the vault. You circle the display, watching colors chase each other around the glass. With every step, green fades, red blooms, then sinks again, like twin tides pulled by your motion. The shifting hues stir quiet thoughts. Technology can delight without solving any problem. Beauty as sufficient reason. Maybe the crafter knew the empire could crumble, yet this cup would still sing when a stranger lifted a flame. Distant clang faintly echoes the dancer's cooling shell settling perhaps, and the sound reminds you time flows even here. You let the torch dip, letting the cup relax into its pond green rest. One last flash of crimson flickers, sympathetic to your slowing pulse, before night reclaims it. You back away, leaving the lycurgus cup to stand guard over its own secret sunsets. Behind you, fresh corridors wait, lined with bronze coins that blush rose gold, promising alchemy reversed and melodies of hidden metals. You draw a slow breath, steady and calm, then follow the gentle slope deeper toward that promise. A gentle slope carries you into a circular chamber where the floor gleams like a pond at dawn. Overhead, lanterns swing on near-silent chains, their flames pacing the ceiling with slow, sleepy orbits. Each breath you take gathers the scent of singed cedar and metal warm from hidden braziers. In the center, a waist-high plinth waits, draped in velvet so dark it steals the torchlight before it reaches the stone. Something small there glimmers, tempting as the last ember in a campfire. You edge closer and the shimmer resolves into coins, thin discs stacked as neatly as tea saucers. Torchlight strikes their rims and a soft rose gold blush pushes through the usual bronze brown, blooming like sunrise across still water. The color is hard to name, neither pure gold nor plain copper, but a shifting note somewhere between. Even gem dealers would shrug, then raise their bids. A glass dome shields the pile, anchored by a simple lead seal. Etched on the dome's rim, a line of Latin claims these pieces were struck during Rome's 3rd century, when emperors traded thrones faster than vendors sold olives. You lean in, noticing each coin's face carries a different ruler, some stern, some smug, one wearing a helmet that looks suspiciously like fancy salad tongs. Mint marks meant "please tip your emperor," historians still tease, yet the joke never reached the treasury. Scholars argue that Corinthian bronze held a blend of copper, gold, and silver so exact that color alone became its brand. One theory says smiths quenched red-hot blanks in cold vinegar, letting acids coax new hues from the alloy. Another claims they buried coins in manure piles, trusting slow heat and good luck. You imagine a proud artisan monitoring dung heaps the way bankers track markets. Quite the investment strategy. You tap the glass, gentle as a moth. A warm note answers, as if metal inside remembers forges singing across a sea it no longer sees. The coins flash pink again, a quick hello, then settle into calm amber. Light seems to swim beneath their surfaces, drifting left when you move right, like minnows dodging your shadow in a stream. A side plaque records failed modern attempts to copy the glow. Labs melted copper with measured pinches of silver and gold, stirred alloys and clean crucibles, yet final coins dulled to ordinary brown within weeks. One frustrated metallurgist reportedly hurled a whole batch into the Rhine, muttering that Romans must have bribed the gods along with the mint workers. You picture the original workshop, charcoal roaring, bellows sighing, molten metal pouring into shallow molds. When blanks cooled, apprentices polished each disc with fine pumice, singing off-key to keep rhythm. Master smiths inspected every shine, flicking dull rejects into scrap, praising bright survivors meant for imperial palms. Outside, a stray dog dozed near the door, ears twitching at sparks that leapt like fireflies. Torch raised, you notice something new. Along one coin's edge, a hair-thin crack reveals a gleam brighter than the surface. The color within shifts from rose to pale peach, then to soft orange, like a sunset layered in metal. It feels alive, waiting for someone to listen rather than measure. You close your eyes, holding that layered light in mind, and sense the chamber breathing. Distant water drips somewhere above a hidden fountain. A faint breeze brushes your collar, carrying a whisper of salt, perhaps sea air from the next exhibit. Your pulse steadies, matching the hush. When you open your eyes, the blush on the coins has deepened, mirroring the warmth in your chest. Beauty, it seems, wears patience like armor. You bow slightly, as if thanking an old tutor for a long lesson, and step back. Beyond this room, a narrow hallway tilts left, its walls lined with woven palm-rid maps. A salty gust slides along the floor, hinting at moon-pulled waves charted by hands that never saw a compass needle. Your curiosity stretches, keen as a sail catching wind. You leave the coins beneath their glass nightlight, trusting their shy glow to outlast another 1,000 storms of curiosity. With gentle footsteps, you follow the drifting salt breeze, ready to trace swells mapped by sticks and intuition alone. A salty hush settles as you enter a narrow hall lined with woven wonders. The floor tilts slightly underfoot, mimicking the gentle roll of a long-gone swell. Soft lanterns dangle overhead, their wicks swaying in the draft, sending ripples of light across walls the color of wet sand. Each flicker feels like moonlight dancing on water, guiding you deeper toward a single display that seems to breathe with the tide. A slender table of polished driftwood holds a frame of pale palm ribs lashed into a loose grid. Thin threads, fibers stripped from tough hibiscus bark, tie each crossing, firm yet flexible. Scattered along those ribs lie cowrie shells no bigger than marbles, their glossy backs catching lantern glow like pinpoint stars. The pattern looks random at first. Some ribs curve, some stretch straight, while shells perch at curious angles. Yet when you lean closer, the lines begin to sing a hidden geometry, one you can almost feel rather than see. In the islands of Micronesia, sailors crafted these charts to read the ocean the way farmers read clouds. Each curved rib marks the path of a swell pushed by distant winds. Straight ribs track the steady current under the surface. Shells pinpoint atolls rising just a hand's width above sea level. Barely enough land to cast a shadow at noon. A voyager memorized the chart ashore, then tucked it away. Out on the ink-black sea, memory guided the hand on the steering paddle. Your elbow notes that modern satellites confirm what the island elders always knew. Waves refract around reefs in rhythmic arcs, creating collision patterns you can ride like streets. You picture a crew in a stick-proud canoe. One sailor knelt at the bow, eyes closed, palms brushing the hull. He feels 2 beats of swell slap against the side, then a softer third beat, proof of an island ahead, even if the horizon shows only stars. Not bad for primitive tech, you whisper to yourself, comparing it to the navigation app currently draining your phone's battery. You lift one cautious finger, hovering above a rib that bows near the edge. The wood shows faint dents, marks left by a long-ago maker pressing it into place against his thigh. Those dents feel like fingerprints of perseverance, evidence that accurate maps can be born from nothing more than driftwood and trust. You do not touch. Instead, you close your eyes and let the hall's hum translate into imagined surf. A distant air vent sigh becomes wind across an open lagoon. The hush of cotton sleeves brushing your sides turns into foam licking a hull. For a heartbeat, you sway, convinced the floor gently rises and falls beneath bare feet. When you blink back, the chart glows milky in the lantern light, every shell a lighthouse pulsing in miniature. Scholars tried coding these grids into latitude-longitude, yet something slipped between the numbers. The magic sits in rhythm, not in math. Timing the wobble of a wave hitting coral, listening for low thuds when deep swells meet shallow shelves. Mariners trained apprentices by sitting them in the canoe's center, blindfolded until they could name islands by the tremor in their own ribs. The chart here carries a woven border dyed with crushed pandan leaves, its green faded to sage over time. At one corner, 2 ribs cross and splinter, repaired with a wrap of coconut fiber. That small patch speaks of voyages survived, storms outrun, and maybe one near miss on a reef sharp as shark teeth. Artifacts rarely advertise their adventures, but this mend feels like a quiet scar-proof it lived the stories textbooks summarize in neat paragraphs. Star Pat. You think back to the rose gold coins and their vanishing hue. Each relic so far has answered a different question. Electricity, motion, beauty, alloy. This stick chart answers belonging. It shows that water, though always moving, can still draw a line home if you learn its pulse. A soft creak draws your gaze to the doorway ahead, where torchlight flickers on limestone walls etched with shallow wave patterns. The next exhibit murmurs of boats carved for pharaohs, but you stay rooted, letting one last breath of sea air wash memory clean. Lantern flame bends, and the shells flash ivory again. Miniature moons pointing back to distant shores. You bow your head in thanks, feeling the rise and fall echo in your chest. The stick chart wave compass rests unchanged, yet the room now feels like open water at midnight. Stars high, hull gliding smooth. You step away slowly, footfalls sinking with an invisible tide, ready to trace cedar planks once fit tight enough to carry a soul beyond death's horizon. The sea scent fades behind you, replaced by stiller, heavier air that smells faintly of sun-warmed stone and ancient resin. Your footsteps soften against a floor of sand-colored granite etched with hieroglyphs that vanish into your shadow. Ahead, the hall opens into a sunken chamber where golden light spills from a crack in the ceiling, perhaps artificial, perhaps not. It falls across a long wooden vessel, its hull resting in a shallow cradle of limestone dust. You recognize the shape even before the plaque confirms it. A Saqqara solar boat, reborn from the dark beneath a pyramid's flank. At first, it looks like a canoe from a dream, Long, lean, every plank joined so tightly it still shames modern yacht builders. The cedar is Egyptian, yet no cedar grows in Egypt. Each beam was hauled from Lebanon, floated down the Nile, and laid beside a tomb where it waited 4,000 years before light touched it again. You step closer, and the wood sealed in desert stillness for 100 generations offers a faint scent of preserved pitch and dried lotus stalks. Its bow curls upward into a stylized papyrus blossom. The stern mirrors it in reverse. Along the deck, 10 oarlocks remain, though the paddles themselves are gone. You can imagine them rising and falling in perfect rhythm, not across Nile water, but across the sky, each stroke rowing a god through the afterlife's long morning. Beneath your hand, the planks are flush, fastened not by nails but by precision. Mortise and tenon joints lashed with rope, then swelled tight with river water. Even today, the fit holds. A small shrine rests mid-deck, weathered gold flake clinging to its edges, walls carved with falcon heads and zigzag water lines. No body ever lay inside. This boat was not for burial, but for guidance. It was meant to carry the Ka, the soul, as it journeyed with the sun god Ra from dusk to dawn, death to rebirth, west to east in the endless loop. You crouch beside the hull, eyes scanning along the length of cedar. Every seam meets clean. The outer shell bulges gently near the waterline, just enough to suggest buoyancy without sacrificing grace. Engineers who studied the restored boat swore it could still float today, strong enough to bear a man across the Nile, or, as legend insists, across the Milky Way. The idea hums in your mind that death was not an end but a crossing, and that even the dead deserved craftsmanship so fine it could tempt stars to bow. You wonder if modern funerals would feel different if mourners built vessels this detailed, if grief came with oars, if loss was something to row through. You run your fingers along the hull, not touching but hovering just above. Beneath your hand, centuries vanish. You feel the ache of the laborers, the careful hauling of cedar beams over hot sand, the steady carving of joints, the final seal of bitumen warmed over low coals. And then the weight, covered, forgotten, until sand shifted, light returned, and air kissed the grain again. Above, the ceiling crack reflects the hull's curve. When torchlight catches the angle, it mirrors the boat on a ghostly axis, one above, one below, like a ferry traveling both this world and the next. You hold your breath, afraid to break the symmetry. If you start moving, I can't see it, but if you start talking, the room quiets. Even the drip of water or hum of air vents absent now. Silence wraps the chamber, and for a moment you feel suspended. Adrift, not in time, but between meanings. The planks beneath you once carried dreams of eternity. Tonight, they carry your gaze. An old legend claims that only those pure of heart could ride the solar bark without sinking. Another says the boat sails only once per night, invisible to waking eyes, its path marked by the flickering of stars just before dawn. You wonder if this very model once knew midnight wind, if it brushed stars when no one was watching. You step back, letting distance reframe the scene. The hull gleams beneath the light, its curves soft as sleep. This was not built for war, or for wealth, or even for life. It was built for the journey beyond it, and that makes it sacred in a way no monument could ever match. You breathe deeply, letting the hush settle again. The vault behind you held bronze, battery, glass, and alloy, but this boat held faith. Not a device, but a passage, a promise. You bow your head, not to worship, just in quiet recognition, and turn toward the corridor, where new relics wait. As you pass beneath the arch, cedar and pitch fade, replaced by the faint scent of seawater spun into silk. Threads shimmer ahead, impossible under torchlight, but tonight they shimmer anyway. The light grows thinner, shifting from gold to silver as you drift down a narrower hallway. Your torchlight flickers against stone etched with scalloped curves, waves frozen mid-ripple. The scent changes again, losing its smoky heat. In its place, something faint and briny, tinged with shell. The air feels drier, but not lifeless. Ahead, a loom waits, not of wood, but bone-white spindles lashed with silk so fine it might disappear when you blink. It's not quite a loom in the modern sense, no shuttle or heddle, no foot pedal clacking beneath. Instead, a lattice of rods arches across an open frame, like a rib cage suspended mid-sigh. Dozens of shining threads drape across it, catching the torchlight with unnatural brilliance, far too lustrous to be cotton or flax. You lean close and the fabric seems to ripple, shimmering like fish scales beneath a current. It moves even when your breath is still. A small shell sits beside the frame, elongated golden ivory with a tiny slit through which a single thread extends. You stare. The thread shines as if lit from within, catching more light than it should, like moonlight braided with lightning. One tag, weathered to near illegibility, calls it by its forgotten name, sea silk. Clamps made this, specifically, the noble pen shell, which anchored itself deep in the sandy floors of the Mediterranean, often barefoot and breath-held, would descend, slice the silk-like byssus strands the clam spun to stay rooted, and surface with wet handfuls of gold. The threads had to be washed in lemon juice, combed by hand, then spun fast, always damp to keep their ghostly sheen. You can almost picture the weaver now, cross-legged, sunburnt, spinning light between fingers. Every inch of fabric could take weeks. An entire scarf might take a year, and when finished, it weighed less than a feather yet refused to fade in the sun. No dye needed. Sea silk shimmered on its own terms. A few scraps remain in museums, locked behind glass. This piece lies exposed to air, and yet still gleams. You blink hard. It shouldn't, and yet it does. Modern materials envy this thread. Lighter than spider silk, tougher than wool, soft enough to vanish on the tongue. Yet the clams that made it have nearly vanished, and even if you found one, would your hands be patient enough to draw its golden breath? You reach out instinctively, but stop short of contact. Something this light must remain untouched. Touch might snuff it out. Instead, you lean in until the glow reflects in your eyes and you see yourself not as you are, but as a thread among threads. Maybe that's the lesson. Some technologies weren't meant to scale, only to shimmer. A nearby fragment lies under glass, sea silk woven with gold into a sleeve from an ancient robe. The stitchwork is impossibly tight, barely visible. A crescent motif loops around the hem. You try to guess its wearer. Was she royal or just lucky? Did she know the thread came from clams pulled from the deep, or did it simply feel good against her wrist? A quote etched into the wall reads, "Woven light is not for profit but presence." No citation, no author. You read it again and again. It feels like something whispered during weaving, a phrase meant to keep rhythm. A slight breeze passes, and the threads sway like underwater grasses. For a moment, the hallway seems to disappear, and you're no longer in a vault. You're underwater, surrounded by threads stitched to tide and time. Your heartbeat softens to match the slow rhythm of the sea. You feel suspended. You feel subtle metallic ping breaks the trance. From deeper within the museum, something old and precise taps out a measure. Clockwork lungs warming up. You rise, slowly, leaving the shimmer untouched. Behind you, the silk fades back into quiet. You walk forward, following the faint sound of falling water. Each footstep feels lighter, as if your boots now rest on spun thread rather than stone. Soon you'll reach fountains that rise with no pump, channels that move water through solid rock. But for now, you carry the sea across your shoulders like a scarf that was never woven, only remembered. Moist air thickens as the corridor narrows, then opens onto a balcony carved straight into a cliff. Night jungle exhales upward, warm and damp, smelling of jasmine and moss. Far below, torch glow dots a garden laid out like a chessboard of pawns, channels, and silent pools that reflect a sky veiled in cloud silver. Beside you, hewn from rust-red granite, their edges polished by 1,000 barefoot ascents. Bats drift past, wings slicing the air with paper-thin snaps. Each step carries you higher until the garden appears small enough to cradle. Green squares stitched by black water lines, every tree casting a moon-pale needle across still surfaces. Halfway up the rock, you reach a ledge where low walls guard shallow basins. They seem dry at first, yet water hums beneath, pressed by weight alone. A nearby channel gurgles, fed by rain trapped on the summit and guided down hidden shafts. No pumps, no gears, only gravity wearing the patient grin of an engineer who trusts height more than bronze. You kneel at the edge of an ancient mausoleum, sandstone drilled smoother than glass. A faint hiss escapes, and a thin jet arcs upward, catching torchlight like a crystal thread flung skyward. It rises 4 handspans, pauses, then falls back, sending ripples across the basin that lap your boots with gentle applause. Modern hydraulics textbooks mention these Segria gravity fountains with a mixture of envy and disbelief. Engineers measured the drop, double-checked flow rates, and shrugged. The math insists the jet should fall short, yet here the stream persists, pushed by head pressure built inside bedrock veins cut when Europe still rattled chainmail in foggy forests. You trail fingers through the falling water. It feels cool, charged with invisible energy, sliding over skin the way bronze gears once tingled your pulse. Droplets bead on your knuckles, reflecting torch flame as pinpoints that dance like fireflies caught in glass. Along the ledge, more nozzles wait, aligned with obsessive precision. Each mouth is carved into a lotus bud, petals curled to shape the spray into perfect symmetry. When wind wanders through, multiple jets lean together, weaving momentary braids that part again, an unplanned choreograph of stone and air. A plaque set into the wall notes that court dancers once performed here, spinning beneath liquid arches while kings watched from above. You imagine silk hems whipping through moonlit mist, turning droplets into prisms that shattered torchlight into tiny rainbows. Even now, stray spray beads your face, cool as dawn tea. The ledge curves onward, guiding you beside etched conduits that carry overflow downward. Some channels end abruptly where stones split centuries ago, yet the main artery still pulses, proof that craft-married landscape can outlive dynasties. You think of the rose-gold coins and their stubborn hue. Permanence, it seems, wears many disguises. Far ahead, stairs slope toward a tunnel mouth, where vines dangle like curtains. Beyond that darkness waits a pathway older than the jungle roots, its paving stones said to shrug off monsoon torrents without pooling a single drop. The thought sends a quiet thrill along your spine. Roads that stay dry beneath endless rain. You stand, letting fountain mist settle on your shoulders like a light shawl, and offer the garden one last slow breath. Water jets rise, fall, and rise again, driven by nothing more than height, patience, and stone veins cut true. You turn toward the vine-framed passage, ready to follow the echo of falling water into a land where rain makes roads stronger instead of weaker. Vines part like velvet curtains as you step from the fountain ledge into a tunnel of green twilight. Damp leaves brush your shoulders, but the stone beneath your boots feels strangely dry, almost powdered. Crickets trill in the shadows, their calls bouncing off limestone walls shaped by hands that believed time could be taught to obey. You follow the gentle decline until the tunnel opens onto a broad, pale roadway glimmering under storm-swollen clouds, its surface bright as a crushed moon. A warm wind rises, carrying the charged hush that precedes tropical rain. The first droplets slap the canopy overhead, racing from leaf to leaf before plunging toward the ground. Yet when they reach the roadway, they vanish, sliding to either side as though repelled by an invisible spell. Water gathers in narrow trenches edging the path, then sluices into hidden chutes that dive beneath the jungle floor. The road itself remains chalk white, an unbroken ribbon stretching to the horizon like a silent river of bone. You crouch, pressing your palm flat against the surface. It feels cool, the texture fine as sifted flour, yet firm under weight. Centuries ago, Maya masons quarried limestone, burned it into quicklime, and spread the mixture in thin layers, each coat polished while still damp. When rain met that plaster, it skimmed away as if skating on glass. Raised edges kept encroaching mud at bay. Packed rubble beneath formed a sponge that drank excess water, then bled it out through stone culverts farther downhill. Efficiency hides inside elegance. Overhead, the clouds finally open, releasing a steady curtain that drums the leaves like 1,000 tiny drums. You watch sheets of water rush off the sekbe, the white road, into gutters carved with obsidian blades, still crisp after 1,000 seasons. Tiny whirlpools spin at each outlet, swallowing runoff without protest. Your toes stay desert dry, even while the jungle floor turns to chocolate pudding on either side. The pale surface glows softly under the dark sky, reflecting flashes of distant lightning. In moonlight, traders once saw these roads from miles away, guiding caravans laden with cacao, jade, and stories. Some causeways ran 10, 20, even 100 kilometers, connecting city-states like beads on a woven cord. At night, torches lining the edges would mirror the Milky Way, turning travel into a pilgrimage between heaven and earth. Archaeologists with laser-scanning drones recently mapped dozens more Sakbiab hidden beneath vines. Their LiDAR images look like ghostly tree roots, yet each line is a road still capable of shedding rain better than modern asphalt. Engineers who visited during monsoon season found their instruments soaked, but their socks pristine after walking here. An accidental field test that left them grinning like children. Relief Commissioner Hurin Akaba executed Trinity Lines 2. Solitary confinement. You rise and stroll forward. Raindrops spatter your shoulders, but the ground stays unblemished, water fleeing your path in shimmering threads. The absence of puddles feels surreal, a magician's gag repeated flawlessly across kilometers. You remember highways back home, cratered after one season of hard weather, and feel a quiet admiration for builders who worked with no steel, no tar, only limestone, sweat, and an understanding of flow. The jungle breathes in steam and exhales mist that curls above the road, weaving silver ribbons against the green. Your torch beam scatters in the haze, painting fleeting halos around every droplet. Somewhere ahead, you hear the gentle murmur of water again, but this time, it sings through carved stone spirals rather than skimming across plaster. Whisper can, rumors say, can speak in echoes of rainfall. You pause, offering the Maya rainproof roads a small nod of thanks. They answer with silence and the steady swoosh of runoff disappearing where eyes can't follow. With soul still dry, you step toward the next bend, ready to meet water tamed into melody rather than motion. The white road dissolves behind you, swallowed by mist and rain as the jungle leans in once more. Stone turns to packed earth beneath your boots, dark and soft as damp bread. Ahead, the path narrows into a gentle slope etched with half-spirals, tiny grooves barely visible until torchlight spills across them. You kneel, tracing one with your fingertip. It's shallow, curved, deliberate. The channel spirals inward like a snail's shell and disappears into a crack that hums with hidden water. You follow the grooves downhill. On either side, terraces rise in lazy zigzags, stone-banked steps cradling fields now thick with fog and wild mint. The scent swirls around your ankles. Vines crawl up, retaining walls, their roots finding grip in the tiniest seams. It feels like a place left behind, but carefully, not abandoned, just trusted to endure. A sudden breeze carries the faint hiss of flowing water. You stop. It's not rushing. It sings. The sound doesn't come from one direction, but many. From the channels underfoot, from hollows tucked into terrace corners, from spiral intakes disguised as rocks. You round a bend, and there it is. A spillway wide as your arms, carved from volcanic stone. Its spirals spetched with notches that shape the falling stream into a spiral of notes. As water flows, it twists through each groove, whistling high and low in alternating pulses. Not loud, never forced, just enough to hear when you stop thinking. Ancient Andean engineers didn't just tame rivers, they tuned them. The Moche whisper canals of northern Peru moved water where the land demanded silence. Gravity carried droplets across valleys, past dry hillsides and thirsty roots, but sound marked the journey. A farmer pausing mid-hoe would know the flow was right if it sang the correct pitch. A shift in tone, that meant a blockage downstream, or a stone out of place. Maintenance by music. You lean closer, letting the spray touch your cheek. It's cool, crisp. Under your hand, the stone is warm, sun-soaked hours earlier, still holding the day's last light. Moss grows along the edges, but never blocks the flow. Nature and craft move here in quiet agreement. Deeper into the system, spiral traps slow the water, collecting sediment in perfect circles. Beside one sits a half-buried tool, flat stone tied to a wooden handle with dried gut. A forgotten rake? Or maybe it was never forgotten, just placed here gently for next season. You imagine a boy trailing his father down the canal line, both listening, not speaking. Each with one ear tuned to the song of water through stone. Modern hydrologists puzzled over this for years. How did water remain so evenly distributed across such a steep terrain? No modern pumps, no control gates, yet even the farthest terraces got their share. The secret was spirals, elevation shifts, and whispering clues. Nature's feedback loop, laid in lava rock and intuition. The canals didn't just deliver water, they taught the land to listen. You take a few steps along the nearest spillway, following its song. With every meter, the tone shifts slightly, yet always resolves into the same soft cadence. Your foot brushes against a carved intake, an oval no bigger than your hand, feeding a side channel that slips down to lower terraces. You pause, crouch, and listen. The tone is slightly flat. You place a single pebble in the channel's rim, the water skips around it, the tone brightens. You smile. Further on, larger spiral chambers appear, collection bowls where water gathers, pauses, then drifts on. Their walls are smooth, patterned with lichen the color of sea glass. One chamber has a perch carved into its edge, just big enough for a human bottom. You sit, feet dangling above the flow. The canal hums beneath, not unlike a giant reed flute played by invisible lungs. You close your eyes. The melody's rhythm slows your breath. Inhale to the curve of the song. Exhale to the hush between pulses. The world narrows, then expands. Sound becoming space. Motion becoming stillness. Rain starts again, gentle and even. Droplets trace the edges of the terraces, join the canals, and are swept into music before they hit soil. The fog swirls, then thins, revealing carved stone veins snaking down the entire slope. Each glows faintly under torchlight. A water-fed symphony, built without scripts, without notes, only memory, tradition, and time. You rise, heart slower, body lighter. The canal sings behind you, unchanged. Up ahead, a rose-red rock face waits, carved by a desert people who once tricked dew from dry air. But for now, you carry the whisper with you, like a tune hummed under your breath, unrecorded, unforgettable. The jungle fades behind, traded for dry stone and pale sun baked into sandstone. The air sharpens, still warm but thinner now, and dry enough that your breath brushes your lips like parchment. You follow a narrow passage flanked by cliffs blushing rose-red in your torchlight. As you walk, the scent changes. Less plant, more dust, with a hint of clay cooled by ancient nightfall. The carved channel hugs the path at your feet, half buried beneath wind-blown sand. You squat beside it, brushing with your fingers. The groove leads into a notch in the cliffside, vanishing under smooth blocks stacked tighter than modern brick. You press your palm flat against the stone. It's cool despite the heat, and faintly damp. The rock is sweating. You follow the damp scent, guided by thin pipes barely the width of your finger. They're clay, not metal, hand-formed, not cast, some glazed, others wrapped in fabric hardened with resin. They vanish into walls, reappear in ledges, zigzag around natural faults, and all of them breathe. Not pour, not leak, breathe. A soft whisper of moisture seeps from each, drawn from the desert air like condensation on a window. You've reached the Nabatea and Petra veins, a network of hidden hydrology that once turned this arid gorge into a living city. They didn't build dams, they built lungs. With nothing but slope, shadow, and knowledge passed hand to mouth, they found water where others saw rock. Above, chiseled steps climb into the cliff, flanked by narrow cisterns disguised as tombs. These weren't built to store grief. They were built to trap night's breath. As air cooled and dropped, it fed water into these channels, dripping through sand filters, collected by silence. Even now you hear it, the slow tick of drops falling into a chamber behind the wall. Some pipes end abruptly, plugged with cloth or sealed with beeswax. Others fork at odd angles, feeding ledges where vines once grew. Their purpose wasn't just irrigation, It was temperature, humidity, protection. An entire city's climate subtly moderated by breath-sized trickles. You press your ear to a wall and the sound is clear. Water traveling through stone like a secret. Not roaring, not even gurgling, just the patient rhythm of something old and confident. You follow one outlet down a slope, stepping between goat-worn stones until you reach a basin no larger than a stew pot. It sits in shadow all day, carved with gentle spirals along its rim. A slow drip lands once every 20 seconds, just enough to keep moss alive on the stone's lip. You wet your fingers, then wipe them on your sleeve, instinctively respectful. This isn't a fountain. It's a gift. Modern engineers who mapped the system were stunned. Gravity alone explained it, yes, but the precision, the placement of catch points along airflow lines, the materials chosen to cool without clogging. It wasn't trial and error. It was memory carved into rock. Water coaxed from the air by math whispered through generations. You pause to imagine the builders, sleeves rolled up, eyes squinting against the desert glare, laying clay tubes along grooves carved into solid wall. A helper carries cool paste made of clay and goat fat to seal the gaps. Nearby, a child crouches beside a cistern with one ear pressed to the stone, listening for that perfect, soothing drop. In the center of the terrace ahead, a palm once stood, now just a circle of darker soil. The pipe that fed it still exhales moisture, barely, but it does. You crouch beside it, place your torch down and close your eyes. The breath from the stone touches your cheek, cool, faint, almost shy. A desert sigh. This isn't irrigation, it's respiration. The trail bends ahead, carrying you past Petra's last whisper. Beyond it waits blue pigment that glows after death, and mirrors that outshone silver. But for now, you remain still, ears tuned to the rhythm of water that never flowed, only gathered, lifted, placed. No sound but a single drop falling. And that drop says, without a word, you are not forgotten. The path tilts upward again, guiding you into a chamber lit by the faintest violet Yule haze. You blink, certain it's a trick of your torch, but no. Even in shadow, the walls emit a soft, ghostly glow, as if the stones themselves remember moonlight. The floor crunches beneath your boots, and when you look down, it's not gravel, it's powdered pigment, ground fine as ash, clinging to your soles with every step. To your left, a small platform displays broken tiles, once part of a mural now collapsed into time. Their surface still pulses with a strange fluorescence, not bright, but persistent, even as your torch dims. One shard catches your eye, deep lapis blue veined with streaks of white. You lift it gently and feel warmth, as if it had been recently held. You're standing inside the faded breath of a forgotten masterpiece, painted with a pigment no modern lab can perfectly reproduce. Egyptian blue. This wasn't just color, it was magic baked into sand and science. Made by heating copper, limestone, and desert quartz to over 800 degrees Celsius, this pigment was the first synthetic color ever created. And unlike almost everything else from the ancient world, it glows. Not in the visible spectrum, but under infrared light, it radiates back with intensity, long after torches die and candles burn out. You crouch beside a cracked vessel once used to store the pigment. Its rim is stained deep cobalt, and flecks of blue still cling to the inside like dreams refusing to dissolve. You picture a scribe grinding pigment on a basalt slab, mixing it with gum arabic, and loading a reed brush for a mural that would face eternity, perhaps on a temple wall or a pharaoh's tomb ceiling, meant to mimic the stars. But there's more to it than beauty. Modern archaeologists discovered that Egyptian blue radiates infrared light, something our eyes can't see but our tools can. Paintings hidden under soot or dirt still pulse with this silent heat. Even when scraped from walls and lost to centuries of decay, its signature remains. A color that refuses to die, a pigment with memory. You trace your fingers along the stone. Beneath centuries of grime, you feel lines etched into the wall, star patterns, lotus stems, a falcon mid-slight. Your torch casts no color here, yet you sense where the blue once ran, lighting the god's wings, circling the pupil of a sun that never sets. If you closed your eyes, the image would still burn behind your lids. Some historians suggest it was more than decoration, that the Egyptians saw color not as style, but as function. Blue didn't just represent the sky, it was the sky. Invoked, invited, pulled into the stone through fire and copper. You can believe it. The room hums faintly, not with sound, but with presence. You take a step forward and catch a glint beneath your boot. A single flake of pigment flakes away, catching the light like a fallen eyelash. You stoop, brush it aside, and a low groove in the floor reveals itself. A mixing channel, perhaps, where binder and pigment were stirred before brushing onto plaster. The channel glows faintly even now, like ink that never dried. In one corner, a small statuette rests. It's nothing more than a cat ears forward, tail curled, but the pigment clings to its flanks, and its eyes shine dimly violet. You wonder if the artisan, centuries ago, finished this piece at dusk, letting the cooling air solidify the fire-baked color. You wonder if they knew, really knew, that this glow would outlast kingdoms. Scientists today try to replicate Egyptian blue for solar panels, biomedical sensors, even anti-Santa fittings. They can almost match the recipe, but never quite the energy. It seems the pigment resists forgetting. You place the shard back where you found it. The glow remains, patient and undemanding. Blue that does not fade. A kind of immortality born from sand and flame. From the next room you hear the faint metallic whir of turning gears. A bronze frame ticks slowly, solving time not with sun or moon, but candlelight and prayer. But before you leave, you glance back one last time. The pigment hums in its own language, invisible and bright. You can't hear it, you can't see it, but somehow it sees you. A slow turn leads you into a narrow hall that smells of warm brass and burnt oil. The light here flickers differently, not with flame, but with motion. Your torch bounces across a copper disc, turning gently on a central spindle. Gears ticking beneath, like a pocket watch held too close to the ear. You approach slowly, boots whispering over smooth tiles etched with starbursts and prayer lines. On a pedestal, half illuminated and still awake after centuries, sits a bronze astrolabe clock, a machine for faith and the firmament. Its lattice spins with quiet dignity. A central disc, called a ret, rests atop several stacked plates, each engraved with arcs and declinations. Constellations pierce its webbed frame like fireflies pinned in orbit. Underneath, overlapping dials track solar time, lunar angles, and something more abstract. Sacred moments determined not by seconds, but by light and shadow. Time measured not for productivity, but for alignment. You lean closer. A candle stub still sits in a recess behind the frame. When lit, it would project the Rite's shadow against a small dial, marking the hour for prayer. One scholar once called it geometry, praying out loud. You smile, imagining the engineer who first dared to calculate sunset by gear ratio. You count at least 9 visible wheels beneath the surface. Each one moves another in turn, until a crescent sliver of brass, no wider than a thumbnail, clicks into place behind the openwork tracery. The sound is soft, a hush of precision. You wonder how long it's been since it last turned. Your torchlight warms the metal gently, and the top plate shivers once. Then, as if politely waking, it rotates a fraction of a degree. Somewhere behind the display, a weighted lever twitches. For a moment you think it might stop, but no. It clicks again, and again. A ghost of motion, a system that needs no hand, just gravity, and the slow devotion of wax melting on cue. This isn't just a clock, it's a calendar, a compass, a servant of ritual. In medieval Islamic courts, such devices were used to calculate the 5 daily prayer times, to align buildings toward Mecca, to map the sky, before astrolabes were romantic, and before clocks had faces. The device knows no midnight. It only knows the sun's reach and the moon's arc. Your eye drifts to the inscriptions. Arabic script curls along the edge. Tiny, perfect, more like stitching than writing. You can't read it, but the meaning travels anyway. Something about the way the letters nest into each other speaks of time as breath, continuous, folding, unfolding, never wasted. You think of every hour you've spent refreshing inboxes or pacing grocery aisles, and wonder what it would feel like to measure time with reverence instead of urgency. A narrow drawer sits under the pedestal. Inside, candle stubs, tiny weights, spare gears, all carefully placed in felt-lined slots. One gear is engraved with a star. You gently lift it, light, balanced, unassuming, and sense it once turned a shadow dial toward the dawn. You imagine the room where this was first assembled. Tiled floor, low cushions, a single window facing east. An astronomer prized hunched over plans, polishing gears by lamplight, listening for the prayer call, so he could recalibrate his design to real light, not theory. His workbench was silent, but not still. Scientists today marvel at how many gears were needed, how accurate these clocks became before escapements, before pendulums, and yet no one can fully agree on how all the parts were supposed to fit. Every surviving clock is slightly different, as if each one whispered its own version of time to its maker. You set the gear back in its place. The Rita continues its slow turn, casting star-shaped shadows on the wall. They drift like passing thoughts, quiet, brief, full of weight. Your torch dims slightly, as if the chamber itself requests silence. You step back, watching the final rotation before the shadow disappears behind a plate again. And then, stillness. The mechanism rests. But not dead, just waiting. Wax will melt, gravity will lean, and it will move again. You don't need to witness it. Knowing it happens is enough. You turn, letting the hum of clockwork fade behind you. Down the corridor you see the glint of polished bronze, a mirror, perhaps, that once rivaled silver. a reflection waiting to show not what is, but what once was. But first, you pause, letting this final turn settle. Time moves differently now. The corridor shifts again, brass fades to shadow, and your footsteps echo softly against cool stone. The walls narrow, then open like a slow breath into a wide courtyard sunk below ground level. No ceiling above, just open air. Stars peeking through high arches where vines dangle in silhouette. You descend a short stair and find yourself standing at the edge of a chasm carved in pure geometry. Across from you, perfectly symmetrical, step after step descends into the earth. Narrow ledges of stone alternating with water, every tier gleaming faintly in the moonlight. You count 5 levels before the steps vanish into inky darkness below. It's not a well, it's a labyrinth, a downward temple, and it's real. This is Chandbauri, the stepwell that bends space, time, and reflection into ritual. Built over a millennium ago in the parched lands of Rajasthan, it wasn't just meant to hold water. It was designed to be cool, a passive air conditioner for the soul, a place where sun-baked villagers could descend out of the heat and into shadow, shade, so cold it felt like sleep. You descend, the steps narrow but sure beneath your boots. The sound changes with each level, more muffled, more intimate. The desert hush creeps in until only your breathing remains. On the 3rd tier, you pause. A small alcove is carved into the wall. No plaque, no offering, just a groove, where perhaps a lamp once sat, or a coin once clinked. Below, the water still shimmers, black and still. Torchlight can't reach the bottom, but it does catch your reflection, twisted and multiplied a dozen times by the angles of the stone. You tilt your head. The reflection tilts. Then another joins it, just a shadow, but for a second it feels like the steps remember everyone who's ever descended. You blink. Only your reflection remains. The air here carries no sound but weight. Not heavy, just dense with silence that has watched generations pass overhead. You reach the final tier, standing just above the water. A single ripple crosses the surface, though nothing touched it. You imagine monsoon rains flooding this chamber in ancient times, filling each step with echo and cool delight. Women drawing water in brass pots, children dipping their feet, priests chanting, their voices swallowed by the stone like lullabies drifting into a dream. You look up, and from the bottom the geometry becomes overwhelming. Lines upon lines upon lines, each tier folds into the next like a mirrored jawbone. You can't see where the steps begin anymore. It feels like you've left the surface altogether. The genius lies in its shape, every angle catching the wind and channeling it downward. Even now, the air brushes your face with the gentleness of midnight linen, a stillness colder than any shadow you've felt tonight. No fans, no vents, no switches, just stone, slope, and stillness. You turn slowly, tracing your fingers along the edge. The stone here feels smoother. Generations of touch have worn it into silk. You wonder who descended here first. Was it the king, testing the brilliance of his architects, or a barefoot girl lowering her pot? The first drop sending ripples into a history no scroll recorded. Modern architects study Chandbauri to learn passive cooling, spatial flow, and sustainable water design. Yet they often forget what the builders knew instinctively. that beauty could serve function without apology, that symmetry could soothe, that coolness could be sacred. Somewhere high above, wind stirs the vines again, sending a leaf drifting down like a message from the world you left above. It lands silently on the dark surface, floating like a lotus. You look around, there is no railing, no rope, only shadow, reflection, and the gentle invitation to rest. You do not resist it. You sit on the edge, letting your legs dangle just above the water. The air brushes your face like a hush. The walls lean inward, softening your thoughts, folding them like parchment. The vault above fades. The stars tilt closer. And for a moment you feel no time at all. The steps behind you vanish into the hush, and the air begins to shift again, no longer cold, but still in the way a workshop waits after midnight. You follow a narrow corridor until you see it. A brass disc the size of a dinner plate, mounted on a frame of carved teak and copper. It rests on a pedestal beside a wooden drawer of sliding parts, wheels, pins, and thin strips of metal engraved with looping numbers. You've arrived at an astrolabe, but not one used for stargazing only. This one hums with layered purpose. Brass wheels overlap like petals, and each one rotates independently. The lattice of cutouts resembles a sunflower mapped by algebra. It's not decorative, it's deeply practical. This is the kind of device sailors, scientists, and poets once argued over. Tonight, it belongs to you. At the center, the main plate bears a grid of altitude lines. Resting atop it is the reed, an open-work spiderweb that maps the fixed stars. You turn it gently, resistance at first, then glide. The stars move as they did for the instrument's last owner. Beneath your thumb, Polaris inches left. Vega rotates toward zenith. Each movement echoes 1,000 sky watches long past. But then you notice something strange, a second layer. Thin, circular, and faintly engraved with angles, rest between the main plate and the reed. This layer is weighted. You tap it, and the astrolabe clicks, then begins to move on its own. This one is different. This is a dreaming astrolabe, a mechanical calculator built not just to track stars, but to model dreams of motion, phases of the moon, solar ascension, latitude changes, and even temple bell timings. Scholars in the Abbasid era used it to predict eclipses, call prayer, chart sea voyages, and on quiet nights to ask unanswerable questions. When should a king travel? Where will Jupiter rise when my daughter is born? The bottom edge of the frame holds a candle-sized insert. A small stub of wax remains crusted in place. Light it, and shadows would fall across the plates in moving rings, time written in shifting geometry. You imagine what that must have looked like. Circles upon circles, stars in slow pursuit of a dial's turning edge. One scholar called it a poem in brass that counts the sky's breath. You find a second, smaller wheel tucked into the side, engraved in Kufic script, its dial not marked with hours but with directions, not north-south, but Mecca, sunrise, moonrise, and mid-morning shade. This astrolabe wasn't just for ships or scholars. It was built to align human life with sky clock and soul clock. Modern engineers marvel at its design. It calculates altitude without batteries, longitude without GPS. Its math lives inside metal teeth, sharpened by time and sweat. You run a thumb across the inner ring, just enough friction to feel every degree carved by hand. Each tick a story, each groove a guess made real. You picture the maker now, hunched in lamplight, brass shavings dusting his tunic, a whisper of cinnamon oil scenting the air. He tunes the dial like a musician stringing an oud. His apprentice watches, silent. Outside, the stars blink on, unaware they are being mapped. And here it still is. Silent. Exact. Waiting. You tilt the device upward and it catches your torchlight just so. The reed flickers in reflection, casting shadows of constellations onto the chamber walls. The Big Dipper stretches across sandstone. Orion's belt slants toward a corner. You move your torch, and the stars shift. You pause, and they hold. Control the light, and you control time. You lower the astrolabe gently back to its cradle. The gears stop, but their story doesn't. Somewhere above this hall, the real sky still turns, and perhaps someone in another time is standing under it, wondering the same thing you are now. You step away, slow and steady, casting one last look back. The astrolabe rests quietly, stars locked once more in their brass orbit. But in your mind, they still turn. Up ahead, you glimpse the flash of something shinier, a mirror perhaps, but not glass. A reflection waiting, not just to show your face, but to change it. You step forward, torch lowered, the path pulling you gently toward the gleam. The next chamber curves inward like a cupped palm, quiet, shadowed, and lined in dark, smoothed stone. You feel it before you see it. A subtle change in the air, a shimmer near your cheekbone like standing beside a forge that's just gone cold. Then you spot it, catching your torchlight from the far wall. A broad, dish-shaped mirror, the color of moonlit steel. Not silver, not chrome. Something older, smarter. You step closer. The reflection blinks to life, not with clarity, but with depth. The image it casts is soft, almost too soft. Your features slightly blurred, lit from within. It doesn't just reflect, it remembers. You tilt your head, the image lags just slightly behind. You're being watched by yourself, and also not. This is a Damascene mirror, crafted from a secret alloy so prized it once cost more than its weight in silver, and so mysterious that not a single recipe survives. The ancients believed it could show not just form, but truth. The mirror doesn't sparkle, it listens. Scholars suspect it wasn't made like modern mirrors with glass and silvered paint. This was cast from a blend of copper, tin, and something else. Zinc, maybe, or arsenic, or powdered moonstone, depending on which legend you read. What matters is the process, melted over charcoal, cooled in shadow, and polished with leather dipped in rose oil until the surface blurred into velvet. You lean in, searching for flaws. There are none. Not scratches, not age spots, not even dust. Your face stares back, softened, honest. But then, there's a flicker. Not movement, more like a change in mood. You frown. The mirror smiles. Just a little. You blink. It returns to normal. Maybe it was your torch, maybe it was something else. Nearby rests a small tray, 2 cloths, a vial of thick oil, and a wedge of polished stone. The oil smells faintly of citrus and ash. Once this would have been applied in careful swirls to wake the alloy before use. There's even a carved instruction, Arabic script curling across the rim. Clean only under moonlight. You pause. Smile. Of course, nothing sacred likes harsh light. Damascus, centuries ago, was filled with artisans who treated metals like silk. They spun alloys for blades, armor, goblets. But the mirrors? Those were something else. Passed down through families, stored in linen, said to show different truths to each viewer. One legend claims they were used in interrogation. No one could lie while looking into them. Another says lovers exchanged them before wedding nights, so each could see the other's soul. You reach out. The surface is cool, not icy, not metallic. Cool like cave stone, like water not drawn in days. The texture is smooth, but not slick. It resists your fingertips slightly, as though alive. Scientists have analyzed surviving samples, but the recipe resists them. Trace metals vary from mirror to mirror. No consistent alloy. Some researchers believe the secret was in the polish, not the blend. Others suggest a quenching process that altered the grain structure of the metal so finely that light couldn't escape without being softened. You catch your reflection again. For a second, you look tired, then younger, then neither. The mirror isn't showing flaws, it's revealing weight. You take a step back, letting the reflection shrink until it's just a blur of torchlight and curiosity. Modern mirrors show you what's on your face. This shows you what might be behind it. You give the dish a quiet nod. Whatever magic or metallurgy lives within it, it has lasted. And it still answers light with light, even when no one's watching. Farther ahead, a narrow bronze tube juts from the wall, crusted with old resin. It points down a dark corridor that smells faintly of smoke and saltpeter. The scent catches your breath just slightly, and something old in your bones tightens. Not fear, anticipation. You leave the mirror behind, not because it's finished, but because it doesn't need you anymore. As you cross the threshold, the torch dims for a moment, and the corridor ahead flickers with the scent of something once whispered by flame. The corridor tightens, stone ceiling dropping just enough to make you duck, as if history wants you humbled before it opens the next door. The air is heavier here, oil thick and acrid, like burnt pine pitch left too long in a sealed room. You smell it before you see it. Fire and salt, rust and resin, the ghost of smoke that once clung to scorched wood. At the end of the tunnel, a bronze pipe protrudes from the wall. Short, wide, and blackened. Not decorative, not inert. You shine your torch and see flecks of tar still clinging to its edge. Residue from something flammable, something mean. The air curls around it in tight spirals. Your skin prickles. This is a Greek fire siphon, recovered from a warship wrecked just off the Peloponnesian coast. You step around the nozzle carefully, tracing the straps that once bound it to a prow or shoulder mount. A bronze trigger dangles nearby, corroded but unmistakably mechanical, ready to release chaos. No one knows exactly how it worked, or what was in it. The recipe for Greek fire was never written down, passed mouth to ear, family to apprentice, sealed with oaths and vanished with the empires that used it. But what we do know, it burned on water. Naval enemies feared it like death itself. Sailors spoke of ships catching flame from nothing, just a hiss, a jet, and then bright, clinging fire that could not be beaten back by wind or waves. Some swore it screamed as it burned. Others called it the dragon's breath. All agreed, once you saw it, you had seconds to pray or jump. You crouch and examine the mechanics. Behind the nozzle, a clay cylinder once held the mixture, Traces of sulfur and pine resin have been found mixed with naphtha, lime, maybe even saltpeter, but nothing modern tests fully replicate the effect. Some scientists guess a two-chamber system, one for the thick resin fuel, one for a quicklime solution. When mixed at the nozzle, combustion instant. You press your hand close to the bronze. It's cold now, but your fingers remember warmth. The ghost of fire lives in the metal's weight, the way the siphon points with purpose, even in sleep. Historians debate if it was pressurized, pumped through bellows, or sprayed with gravity's help. They've reconstructed a few plausible models. Most never worked. One caught fire. In a museum, no one tried again. Imagine the craftsman fitting the nozzle, tightening the leather seal, watching smoke curl from the forge. He knows this isn't a weapon, it's a reputation, a performance, a terror. When the enemy sees flame arcing across the waves, leaping like a serpent from bronze jaws, they don't think chemistry, they think curse. You wonder if the soldiers who carried it knew what they wielded, or if they flinched each time it hissed to life. Did they aim it, or did it aim them? The wall behind the siphon bears faint scorch marks, an accidental test perhaps, or a final gasp before the artifact was sealed away. You step back. Torchlight catches inside the nozzle's curve, and for a moment it glows red again. You blink and it's gone. Somewhere nearby, a ventilation shaft moans with shifting air. The echo sounds almost like breath. Low, deliberate, mechanical. It stirs your torch flame sideways, drawing you toward the corridor beyond. You cast one final glance at the Greek fire siphon, that war-born throat of flame, and whisper a wordless respect, not for its destruction, but for its survival. Because if terror had a shape, it would be this: bronze, blackened, and patient. You walk on. Ahead waits silence, but it won't last. In the next room, a blade once danced through silk mid-fall, and it might still. The corridor widens without warning, and the torch in your hand suddenly feels too bright. You raise it cautiously, revealing the faint glint of metal lining the walls. Long panels of darkened steel, hammered smooth and humming faintly with the cold. The air has changed. It's dry now, iron-scented, like the space between lightning and thunder. In the center of the chamber, resting on a raised slab of wood blackened with age, lies a sword. Not ornate, not showy. Its blade tapers gently, slightly curved, the color of storm clouds. The edge looks soft, until you realize it reflects nothing. No glare, no torchlight. Just a perfect line that drinks light whole. This is Phoenix Commander steel, what some call Woots, others call Damascus, and everyone calls lost. You step closer. The blade reveals its secrets slowly. Faint swirling lines run along its length, like smoke frozen into metal. These aren't etched, they're born in the forging. Carbons folding, refolding, whispering secrets into every layer. You tilt the torch, and the blade answers with ripple patterns that pulse like heartbeats under skin. It's not decoration, it's structure. A silk scrap sits beside it. You lift it, weightless, and let it fall. As the fabric descends, the sword slices it in two before it even touches the floor. The silk parts mid-air, halves drifting like falling leaves. The blade doesn't move. The room exhales. Crafting this steel required a precise dance of heat and faith. Crucible forged in ancient India, Woots was made by melting iron with carbon-rich materials, leaves, bark, even old wool. inside sealed clay pods, heated just enough to fuse, never too much to bubble, then cooled slowly over days. Metallurgy not just by temperature but by patience. When forged properly, it produced a blade that was hard at the edge, soft at the core, able to bend but never break. And when ground smooth, those inner patterns emerged, lines like fingerprints, impossible to fake. Even modern microscopes struggle to explain the complexity of the carbon matrix that makes it so resilient. Metallurgists call it thermodynamic phase behavior. Smiths call it art. You reach for the hilt, slowly, and feel how the balance pulls forward, not like a weapon eager to strike, but like something already in motion, asking you to keep up. It's not heavy, it's alert. The grip is wrapped in cracked leather, softened by time. You don't lift it, you respect it. 1,000 hands may have, across 12 borders, this steel traveled, across Silk roads, into Persian scabbards, onto Roman belt loops. It passed from king to thief to merchant to warrior to collector. Each called it by a different name, but all whispered the same truth. It was better. Legend says some blades forged from phoenix patterned steel could slice a feather mid-air or shatter another sword with a single parry. Some were said to never dull. Others were buried with their owners, so no rival could wield them. All were feared. You crouch beside the slab, noticing the marks on its edge, gouges where perhaps other blades met this one and lost. Beneath those, someone etched a single line in an old dialect. One edge for war, one edge for peace. It's unclear if it's a warning or a prayer. You run your fingertip gently along the flat of the blade. It's colder than the air around it, as if it remembers battles that have long gone quiet. No blood, no heroics, just memory, packed into a molecular weave tighter than any code ever written. Modern labs have tried to recreate roots, but they get the recipe wrong every time. The ore's different, the carbon's different, the cooling curves don't match. The result is always close, but never perfect. The soul, it seems, refuses to be cloned. You rise, leaving the blade untouched. Some truths aren't meant to be picked up. They're meant to be witnessed, then carried forward like a weightless burden. Far ahead, you catch a faint hiss of steam, a strange rhythm, the sound of pressure released, of vapor dancing through ancient brass. The next chamber waits, with spinning spheres and forgotten engines. You turn away from the Damascus blade, its edge now part of your memory, your rhythm. The silk still floats at your feet, parted without violence. You step into a round chamber where the walls slope inward, ceiling low enough that your torchlight paints a full circle. In the center, perched on a squat pedestal of scorched marble, sits a bronze globe suspended between two pipes. It's hollow, tarnished, and balanced so perfectly that it rocks ever so slightly as steam hisses through unseen vents. This isn't a toy. This is the Aeolipoli, a steam engine long before anyone thought to name such things. Built in the 1st century, attributed to Hero of Alexandria, it's less machine and more miracle of patience. A globe that spins when vapor escapes, using nothing but pressure, symmetry, and nerve. Your torch flickers in the rising heat. A faint click sounds behind the pedestal, followed by a hiss, and suddenly the globe shifts, just a little, then more. Steam jets from two tiny nozzles on opposite sides, and the sphere spins. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady, graceful, as if it never forgot how. He circles slowly. The jets are bent at an angle, giving the globe a reactive push, like a water wheel in reverse. The principle's simple. Heat water, create steam, give it a place to escape, and motion follows. But it took nearly 2,000 years for anyone to consider turning it into power. Hero built it as a temple demonstration, maybe to impress, maybe to scare. Some say it was used to open massive doors. Others claim it powered a moving altar. Tonight, it powers awe. You crouch, watching vapor curl from the jets. The sound is quiet. Less engine, more kettle. The rotation speeds up, ever so slightly. The globe, about the size of a melon, is mounted on needle-fine pivots. You imagine the craftsman balancing it for hours, adjusting the weight of each nozzle until the spin became effortless. He had no digital levels, just eyes, hands, and enough time. The heat source below is hidden. You feel warmth in the pedestal. Steady, pulsing. Maybe oil. Maybe coals. You don't need to know. All that matters is that the sphere is moving. A relic still alive. You glance at the nearby plaque, etched in Greek and English. It offers specs, names, diagrams. But none of that captures the truth. That here, long before coal, before combustion, before steamships and turbines, someone made the air move by coaxing water to whisper. Modern engineers see it and weep a little. The physics is sound. The application? Neglected for centuries. History skipped this invention like a missed heartbeat. Imagine the world if Hero's machine had sparked the industrial age in Rome instead of England. Where would we be now? Or better yet, where wouldn't we? You stand, slowly, letting the spinning blur become hypnotic. The motion is smooth enough that the nozzles vanish, just a ring of brass, turning. The room breathes in sync. Steam fades, then builds again. A pulse, a cycle, a meditation. You walk around once more, noting the scratch marks on the pedestal. Hundreds of them, shallow grooves from tools, maybe fingers. Someone touched this, again and again, long after it was first built, maybe trying to fix it, maybe just needing proof it was real. A small, round window in the wall shows a flickering light from the next chamber. The air smells sweeter there. Cedar, perhaps, and something faintly like music. You look back once more at the Eolipile, now spinning slightly faster. No wires, no gas, no gears, just pressure turned into poetry. You leave it behind like an exhale. The steam keeps hissing, the globe keeps spinning, and the past stays in motion. You follow the scent of warmed wood and something stranger. Brass, perhaps, and beeswax. The corridor leads into a vaulted room shaped like an amphitheater, and the sound meets you first. A low wheeze, almost musical. It doesn't echo, it resonates, as if the very air has chosen to sing. Your torchlight catches movement. No, not movement, but shimmer. Pipes, hundreds of them, stacked like reeds across a towering frame at the far end of the hall. Some are squat and fat. Others rise like organ flutes, thin as reeds and capped in delicate bells. At the base, a stone bench with pedals carved from marble. You step closer. The pipes pulse, faintly. You can feel the vibration in your teeth. This is the hydraulis. An ancient water organ, not wind-driven, not electrical. It runs on pressure. Water falling from height, channeling through bronze, pushing air into sound. A symphony built from plumbing. You set your torch into a bracket and crouch near the base. The reservoir rests behind the pipes, still trickling water down a series of worn stone grooves. A hidden weight opens a small vent. Air forces upward, rising through a wind chest, an ancient pressure regulator. You hear the pitch shift slightly, then settle. One pipe hums to life, then another. The chords swell, faint and hollow, like a memory you almost recognize. You touch the keys. They're marble, shaped like modern piano keys but broader, flatter. When you press one, there's resistance, then release. And from above, a puff of sound. Not loud, not melodic, yet just the suggestion of tone. Scholars once believed the hydraulis was for theater. Others insist it was sacred, built to fill temples with unearthly music as water trickled from fountains and steam curled through columns. The Greeks built the earliest ones. The Romans perfected them. Pipes tuned to minor scales, minor keys, chords that could make a senator weep or a god rise. You strike a three-note chord. The sound swells upward, soft and breathy. One pipe emits a note like a lullaby played underwater. Another answers a tone lower. The sound doesn't spread, it surrounds. The walls carry it, wrapping it around you like a weighted blanket made of vibration. The builders used pressurized bronze bellows, but not by hand. Water did the lifting. Behind the organ, a mechanism pulses with hydraulic breath. Old, slow, eternal. A wheel dips into a pool below, lifting weighted buckets. Each drop pushes air into the system. No fire, no fuel. Just gravity, rhythm, and sound. You glance up. Some pipes are blackened, as though lit by candle smoke or burned incense. A few still glint, burnished by centuries of awe. Someone polished these with care. Someone once waited for that exact note, struck it, and listened as a temple's roof seemed to lift. One legend says a Roman general brought his hydraulis on campaign, wheeling it through Gaul to frighten local tribes with its ghost sounds. Another claims Cleopatra had one that played itself every morning, tuned to mimic the birds near her window. No proof, of course. But the notes linger, don't they? The music you've coaxed out fades slowly, like a breath drawn back into lungs. You don't touch the keys again. It feels wrong now, as though the instrument remembered how to sing, but only briefly. You walk behind it. Small tuning levers sit beside each pipe. Bronze pegs you could still adjust if you knew the scales. One is marked with an engraving of a dolphin, another a crescent moon. Code or just symbols? No one knows. Some questions are best left unanswered, their mystery part of the harmony. You step away, the echo of notes still circling. Behind you the water flows steadily. It will continue long after you're gone. This wasn't just an organ. It was a breath that never left the body. Up ahead, a trickle of light escapes beneath a carved archway. You smell wood smoke and crushed dates. You hear wheels. The mechanism is waiting. But the hydraulis continues, in silence and in song. You follow the sound, faint, steady, familiar. Not the whisper of air or drip of water this time, but the rhythm of motion. Something turning, something working, something alive. In the dark, the corridor narrows into a vault lined with low alcoves, and in the center, lit by a single swinging lantern suspended from a wooden crossbeam, you see it. A stone platform, slick with age, a set of wide channels carved like veins, wooden sluice gates, bronze valves, and above all, an interlocking web of water wheels turning in silence. You've entered the Shushtar hydraulic maze, and it's still running. The entire room is a hum, not loud, not mechanical, organic, like breath caught in a sleeping giant's throat. Above, small spouts in the wall drip water into carefully placed stone basins. Each fills slowly, then tips, releasing a flood into the waiting troughs. The water surges, turns a wheel, floods a chamber, triggers another. It's a domino line made from liquid and time. You crouch near one of the lower wheels. It's carved from teak, banded with bronze, its spokes grooved by centuries of motion. As water strikes it, the wheel spins smoothly, lifting a scoop that vanishes behind the wall, then reappears empty. You can't see where it empties. You don't need to. It's working. Built over 1,500 years ago in what is now southwestern Iran, the Shushtar system wasn't just a feat of civil engineering. It was a clock, a pump, a voice, designed to irrigate fields in brutal heat, grind grain for entire cities, and still remain cool to the touch. In summer, its tunnels stayed 20 degrees below surface temperature. Engineers from the Sassanid Empire chiseled these channels without CAD software, without drills, just picks, chalk lines, and infinite foresight. You step deeper into the room. The wheels rotate at different speeds, each perfectly calibrated to its gate's pressure. Some lift water. Others grind slowly, hollowing stone with sand and grit. One drives a thick wooden shaft that disappears into the next room. You hear its echo there, a slow churn like breathing. It wasn't just utility, it was design. The chambers are shaped to amplify airflow, drawing cool breezes down through the tunnels, venting hot air upward through tall towers carved into cliff face. You stand beneath one now. Warm air tickles your shoulder, drawn skyward like incense. The whole space is a lung. You exhale, and it joins the breath of the place. Scholars found written tablets nearby, notes from architects, tax logs for barley milled by the system, instructions etched into marble for future generations. The words are faded, but one line survives in a recess beside the gate. Water is memory. Let it flow, and it will return what was lost. You watch a side channel open. Water floods a groove, turns a tiny wheel, and then vanishes again. No wasted motion. Everything contributes. You realize the entire maze is powered by a single stream, diverted from a river hundreds of meters away. That one trickle drives dozens of functions, as long as each path remains clear. Modern hydrologists studied the system. Most left silent, notebooks full of questions and admiration. They couldn't replicate it without pumps. This room requires no power, no wires, no switches, just movement, balance, listening. You place your palm on the nearest wheel. The wood is wet but not soggy, alive but not wild, turning without protest. You close your eyes and imagine farmers waiting at the exit channels, jars in hand, shirts tied above sunburnt shoulders, smiling when the stream arrived on schedule. Above, a final spout releases a pulse of water that strikes a gong, just once, softly. A signal. A minute passed. A chamber filled. A task completed. Then, silence. You look toward the next tunnel. There's a new scent there. Sawdust, lacquer, and something mechanical. You hear gears, but these are different, more delicate, ornamental even. Before you go, you glance back at the hydraulic maze. Its pulleys, its spirals, its rivers moving like thoughts under stone. You smile, then follow the slow clack of wood and wheel into the next mystery. The wooden corridor opens like a drawer being slowly pulled from the past. You step into a bright little room with low walls, wide enough to turn around in, but only just. Everything here gleams. Lacquered beams, polished axles, tiny hinges fitted with such care that your torchlight can't find a gap. On the far side, a small chariot stands alone. It's no war machine, no heavy wheels or armor plates. The wood is pale, the finish smooth, like something carved for ceremony or performance. A single figure sits in front, carved from cedar and wearing the faded shape of a robed traveler. He leans slightly forward, one wooden hand resting on the reins, the other pointing. Always south. You found the south-pointing chariot an ancient marvel of differential gears. No matter which way the wheels turn, the figure always aims toward the same direction. It's a compass built not from magnetism, but from motion. You circle the chariot slowly. The wheels are solid discs reinforced with bronze rims. Beneath the axle, a network of gears links both wheels to a vertical shaft. As the wheels turn, they spin that shaft, which connects to a second set of gears beneath the figurine. But here's the brilliance. If the chariot turns, the difference in wheel rotation causes the figure to compensate, rotating the opposite way. The body turns, the finger does not. No magnets, no GPS, just pure mechanical logic, born in China over 2,000 years ago. You crouch beside the wheels, fingers tracing the notches along each cog. They're worn smooth but still sharp. You could drive this today, and the figure would still find south. Historians believe it was used by emperors and generals, a way to assert power, yes, but also awe. Imagine riding through foreign territory, your chariot guiding you without stars, the figure unmoving as the world turned. It wasn't just engineering. It was magic made visible. You tap the axle lightly. It rocks, just enough to hear the gears whisper. You don't dare push it farther. Something this precise survives by not being handled. Scholars still argue who invented it. Some name Ma Jun a 3rd century mechanical genius. Others say it dates back to the Warring States period. What matters is that it worked. It still does. And while armies marched and dynasties fell, the finger never wavered. You glance again at the figure. His eyes are closed, his face worn. But that hand, always extended, always guiding, feels eternal. A symbol of direction in a world where even roads change shape. Modern roboticists admire this chariot not for its function, but for its concept. It's a lesson in relative motion, a mechanical way to preserve orientation without measuring anything directly. Just count rotations. Compare them. Let math do the rest. You rise and walk around the back. A compartment reveals itself. small drawers built into the chassis. Inside one, folded linen maps. Faded brushstrokes mark rivers, mountains, and faint lines stretching across kingdoms no longer named. One bears a compass rose, but here the cardinal points feel unnecessary. The figure already knows the way. You close the drawer and place your palm lightly on the wooden frame. It's cool, solid. It doesn't feel ancient. It feels ready, like it could roll again at dawn. You step back, watching the light catch the figurine's fingertip. For a moment, you're not sure if it points south or forward. A breeze trails down the corridor behind you, smelling faintly of glass and heat. The scent is odd, clean but unstable. Something fragile waits next. Something that bends before it shatters. You give the chariot a final nod. It does not respond. It simply points. The air changes again. On is the brass, the wood, the warmth of things meant to endure. The hallway ahead feels colder, not from wind but expectation. Every step clicks faintly. The floor beneath you no longer stone but obsidian glass, smoothed so perfectly your torchlight reflects back at you like water. You reach the end and see it there, quiet, simple, waiting. A drinking vessel, small, thin-lipped, flared slightly at the base. You almost miss it, except that your torchlight bends as it nears, warping oddly, like heat shimmer over ice. You crouch, then you see it. When you tilt your flame to the left, the glass curves, stretches, but does not break. Tilt further, and the lip bows in gently, the edge rippling under pressure, like wax softening. And then, snap. Not real, of course. Just memory. This is shattering flexible glass, the final relic, the forgotten miracle that bent like copper and broke like crystal. According to Roman legend, one man knew how to make it. He forged a vessel that could fall to the ground and dent, not shatter. When he presented it to the Emperor Tiberius, he demonstrated it by dropping the cup. It didn't break. He then pulled a small hammer and tapped the dent away. The emperor asked, "Who else knows this secret?" The man smiled. "Only me." So Tiberius, fearing it would devalue gold and silver, had him executed. You peer closer. The vessel before you isn't chipped. It curves as if poured into shape by thought. The transparency is unnatural, not quite glass, not quite crystal. Your torchlight dims slightly when near it, then brightens as you pull back. It reacts. Or maybe you imagine it. Modern scientists debate whether the story is real. Some suggest the glass was laminated metal, some say it was polymer-coated silica. Others point toward lost ionic processes, something akin to how Gorilla Glass is treated now. We've gotten close, but never to the exact effect described in the story. And yet, here it is. You flick your finger lightly against the rim. No ring, no ping. A dull thud like striking wood. You tap harder. It bows just slightly, impossibly. Then straightens. No crack. You press harder, and a fracture blooms across the surface like a lightning bolt. But it doesn't shatter. It just holds the shape, as if saying, "I remember how to break, but not tonight." A plaque nearby has only 2 words etched in Latin, tempus fragile. Time is fragile. You stare at the cup for a long while. It feels like the whole vault ends here, not with grandeur, but with restraint. All this power, all this ingenuity, And this was the one that scared the Emperor. You understand now. It wasn't the object. It was what it meant. Something that bends, survives, adapts, but looks like it should break. You step back. The torch dims. The vessel fades to shadow, and the silence feels respectful. Behind you, every invention still echoes. The ticking clock, the spinning globe, the cooling blade, the singing pipe. But this doesn't echo. He stays quiet. Because fragile things don't ask for attention. They wait to be held carefully. You exhale, enter, and walk toward the door you didn't see until now. One shaped like morning light.